Welcome, everyone, to the Inclusion Podcast. I'm Dr. Julie Costin.
And I'm Dr. Christy Preddy-Franzak. We're so glad you're here as we explore all things inclusion.
So whether you're a school leader, an educator, a parent, or simply passionate about inclusion, this podcast is for you.
In each episode, we go beyond the usual conversations, diving into what truly makes inclusive education work.
Together, let's make a difference, one conversation at a time. Here we go. Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 49. Support is a verb. Christy, how excited are you about this one?
Well, for different reasons, pretty excited because I always think of our origin story around paraprofessionals. And then this one goes even deeper because it stems from your dissertation as well as my dissertation. So for me, it's like pretty exciting because it's always like our origin story.
I love it too, Christy. And for all those reasons, and because one of the first and most problematic things that we hear from school systems that are becoming inclusive is we need more support. So Christy and I think, great, you're right. We do need more support. But they think humans. They think paraprofessionals. They think they just need 1 more or 7 more or 19 more adult humans to provide support so we can include kids.
Well, I think it even goes even deeper, Julie. Oftentimes we hear people talking about co-teaching as a synonym for inclusion. And so we would be more inclusive if we had more co-taught classrooms. So it's also speaking to this idea that we need more humans doing something together to offer the amount of support kids need to accomplish inclusion.
Yes. So today we've done something a little different. We've written a little piece that we're going to be reading throughout this podcast to really help people change their thinking about what support is and what support isn't. So, Christy, have you ever had someone supporting you, but it didn't actually help?
I always blame Mike, but I always think, like when you're just like complaining about something or my mom sometimes does this too. Like we'll schedule a time to talk and then she'll be like, well, is this an okay time? Or we could call later, or you could rest first, or like they're offering ideas, but they think they're supporting me by giving me advice or troubleshooting. And I'm like, nope, I'm good. That's like the least kind of intrusive kind, but it's annoying.
It's so annoying. And I think what we have to do is rethink what support looks like from the unobtrusive and annoying, right? To the incredibly intrusive.
And harmful.
Right? So we're going to just start with this idea. We're going to rethink what support really means in inclusive education. And spoiler alert, it's not a person. It's not a time slot. It's not something we put in an IEP checkbox. It's a verb.
And I always like to say it's not any kind of verb, Julie. And this is boring to anybody and everybody but me. But it's a transitive verb. So it really has to be about what are we supporting? What are we doing? What are we kind of thinking about our actions? Not just any kind of word, but a transitive verb.
Oh, I know you love that too. And I've grown to love it, Christy, because I realize that there's an object that we're doing something to in order to support. So I'll start with kind of part 1. Support is not just any verb. It is not standing or sitting next to a student. It is not the magical air breathed by the special education teacher. No. Support starts in knowing the student's strengths, needs, and preferences. Then it's the thoughtful, intentional actions we take before, during, and after instruction that help a student open up to learning and make that learning stick. Sometimes support means adding things like novelty, visuals, tools, or strategies. And other times it means subtracting things like distractions or complexity or unpreferred formats. So when we kind of start that way, thinking about support not being just any verb, it's the things we add and the things we subtract. Why is that important when we especially think about the ways in which people think support is hiring an adult human?
Well, I think at least one thing, Julie, is that we don't always articulate what the action should be. And I mean, maybe a little bit, like you said, like in a drop down on an IEP. But
Mm.
normally it's more like, go be support, go support
Yes.
this classroom. I have to go and support this kid. But we don't talk about the action we're going to take. And then I would say the part about subtracting, we rarely talk about. So you and I talk about fading support or invisible support or natural supports, but that's rarely a conversation when we're thinking of adding humans. We're not thinking of subtracting actions. So they kind of are opposites of each other.
Yes. And it's rarely mentioned, it's rarely written down, it's rarely discussed. It's rarely shared with the humans that are in that role that are confused because often the default is support must mean I'm going to sit next to this kid and I'm going to point at their work and I'm going to tell them again the instructions. And all of those kinds of supports are not helpful. So, Christy, I don't mean to change our order, but would you tell people about the resource that they're going to get if they go and check out the resource that comes with this podcast?
Yeah, you know that we love a handout, so sure, we
We
could
can't
talk
help it.
all episode about the handout. So this is at inclusiveschooling.com, and then I always have to go, is it forward
It's
slash
forward slash KPF
forward
forward.
slash 40 download 49? So inclusiveschooling.com forward slash download 49, and you're going to get 130 verbs, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yes.
So again, like Julie said, support is not a place or a person or a program. It's these intentional actions. So if you're driving or working and can't see the handout, just imagine there are 13 broad categories. Julie will probably, call out a few. And in each of the 13 categories, there are 10 verbs, 10 actions that we intentionally add or subtract.
Okay. Let's go back to kind of the idea of support is a verb. It's not a human. And I'm just going to look at part 2, which is this 3-part framework. And it's about what do we do before, during, and after. Christy, do you want to read the before, during, and after?
You go ahead. I'll make a
Okay.
connection back to the handout and download after.
Oh,
Thanks.
perfect. Okay. So before the lesson, support begins with planning. It's asking what words or steps might be tricky in this lesson. Can we pre-teach, add visuals? Can we chunk anything? And crucially, support is co-planned by general and special education teachers. So that's the support that happens before the lesson. During the lesson, support is quiet but powerful. It can be a visual cue, a sticky note, a peer support. It's all the educators working to create access points for all the students. It's also knowing when to step back and let the students take the lead. Then after the lesson, support becomes reflection. What worked? What didn't? What did the student show us or say that they need next? And then we listen, we adjust, and we grow and we change.
So then if you're thinking, okay, I like that. I like this idea of figuring out like, how can we co-plan? And I want to be silent or quiet, but powerful. And I want to like make sure that we do some reflection. Then you definitely want to get the download at inclusiveschooling.com /download 49, because this is where we think more about not just what action, what verb, what thing we're going to do, but when we're going to do it, how it's received, who did I communicate with it? Do I need to chunk it, like you said? Do I need to be more silent? Do we need to be more obvious? So that's where the art comes in.
I love describing it as an art. And I love that you said it's the figuring out of the how of it. And I would add the who of it, right? Because so often we think it has to be a paraprofessional that's doing this stuff. And the truth is, it can very often be the general education teacher. It can very often be a peer who's providing that support. It can be the adults that are already naturally in the environment without adding an additional adult.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes, Julie, that goes back to, we've often said we need to say, we need to become more inclusive. And then we need to say, we need to become more inclusive with supports. And then we need to say, we need to become more inclusive with supports that aren't humans. And so it's like, it's a big story, right? And so, but you
Mhm.
just hit on that best support in that moment for that person might be something that's in the environment, might be a peer, but it's not always by default an adult or someone with a lot of training. It could be a variety of ways.
That's right. That's right.
So let's talk a little bit about we want support that's actually supportive. Let's go back to our little story a bit.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's only support if it is actually supportive. This is where we get it wrong often.
And this is where I was trying to say with my husband and my mom that
Mhm.
they're trying to be helpful and supportive and meet my needs, but I didn't have a need. I didn't need something. I didn't need problem solving.
Yeah, right. And so for you, you wouldn't call that support because
Right.
why? It's
I
not
call it
supportive.
annoying.
Annoying, exactly. So what we like to say is we must remember it's only support if it's actually supportive. If it doesn't help the student access content, if it doesn't help them engage or make meaning, then we can't call it support. Too often, we mistake presence for impact. We confuse proximity with effectiveness. We even equate fulfilling IEP minutes with providing meaningful support. But support is not about checking a box. It's about whether a student is growing, participating, and feeling like they belong. And if it's not working, that's not a failure, it's feedback. Because support is a verb and verbs can be changed.
Oh, I just want to drop the mic there. I was like, oh, are we done? Because that's like the best part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it too because I think often that we equate sitting next to a special ed teacher even and go, look what's happening. Support. And
Hmm.
in reality, it's not their presence. It's what they've done to plan for before, during, or after the lesson.
And when we think about it in the kind of current way, Julie, we think inclusion is harder than it is.
Yeah.
Not to say that there aren't challenges and not to say that it doesn't take a lot of effort in shifting mindsets, heart sets, and skill sets. But we start to make up that there's something magical happening that only certain people can do in certain ways in certain places.
That's right. And it sounds so complex, doesn't it? Because I have to
Yeah.
have a degree to do it. And in reality, really good educators know all these strategies and more.
And so I think that when we think about one more time, let's go back to your notion about the quiet and powerful supports, that they aren't the people at all. It's
Yeah.
actually the verb, the what the people are doing or creating or ensuring or planning that is actually what is supportive. So do you want to say anything more about the handout?
Yeah, I was just going to open it up right now to kind of to just pick one piece to talk about. So again, support is a verb. It's what people do. And it's everything from how we pace a lesson to how we present subject matter to the materials we have at the ready, to the adaptations we have at the ready, to the social interaction supports. And what I'm doing is I'm just reading the big categories, and under each of those categories, you'll see 10 verbs that give you support as how to do this work. So I'm going to take social interaction support and I'm going to read just one of the verbs. Pair students strategically to support positive interactions. So the pairing itself, the thinking carefully about who is the best student to support this other student is the actual support.
And I think for me, as I'm looking at our list, and again, this is at inclusiveschooling.com/download 49. I love some of the verbs. They're going to be surprising. They're like celebrate and share and offer and send instead of like, hand over hand or sit by.
Right. I don't even think any one of these talks about flashcards, Christy.
No, I would think not. If they do,
If they do, we better revise it. And so these resources are free, right, Christy? You can just put in your email address and you get it immediately to your
yep,
inbox for free.
exactly.
So we didn't say that, but just know that this will help you guide your educators. If you're an administrator or if you're an educator, it will help guide your paraprofessionals or others in what does support look like and how do we make it make the most sense for this particular kid. So let's kind of get to the closing, Christy. And the closing of this particular essay that we wrote is, so let's stop defining support as a person. Let's define it by what we do and whether it works. It's the thoughtful planning, it's the in-the-moment adjustments, it's the reflection and follow-through. And let's remember why this matters, because inclusion doesn't mean more people, it means more possibility. And when we get support right, it just fades right into the background so students can step into the foreground. That's the magic of real inclusive support. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe and catch up on past episodes where we share valuable insights, straight talk, and practical steps to challenge outdated special education practices. You can find every episode with the show notes at inclusiveschooling.com/inclusion-podcast to build more inclusive schools together.